Fate Entertainment.
Thank you guys for joining us for another episode of State of the Jungle presented by First Star Logistics. We are live from the First Star Logistics studio as always for another episode. Joined by my co-hosts, we've got Evan McPhillips, we got Logan in the building. We have a jam-packed show, a lot of stuff to get into. Again, this is Cincinnati's very own, right, live studio show dedicated to Cincinnati Bengals talk, where we truly interact with each and every single one of you, where we allow you guys to ask us questions, we answer it, and we like to conversate with you guys. We appreciate everybody who participated last week in last week's mock draft war room episode. Next week will be the second edition of the mock draft war room episode, and we might have a special guest joining us on the show. But before we jump into anything, make sure you guys give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and do me a huge favor, turn on post notifications so you guys can stay up to date with the State of the Jungle crew. Without further ado, we're going to jump right into the show. The title of today's show is who's our can't miss prospects at 28 for the Cincinnati Bengals. I have my thoughts. Logan has his thoughts. Evan has his thoughts, but we're going to let Logan start us off with this one. Logan, in a perfect scenario, right? Realistic. Let's talk realistic because there are Bengal fans out there that think Kalijah Kancey is going to be there at 28. I'm here to tell you right now, it ain't happening. In the words of Stone Cold Steve Austin, it ain't happening. Who is a perfect player, right? A perfect prospect, I'm sorry, that if you saw sitting there at 28, you'd be salivating for the Cincinnati Bengals to grab. Who is that perfect prospect for Logan?
It's tough for me because some of the guys that I really do like, I'm not really sure they're going to be there. But, if they're perfect, that means they're there, and we're going to roll with it. The two guys that really stand out to me, first and foremost, the one that is just the most perfect to me is Darnell Wright from Tennessee. I mean, that's where he's really – I'm not taking DeJuan Jones at 28. I don't – any of these other tackles, they're fine. But I think Darnell Wright is just the most perfect prospect for what he presents as a player, what the Bengals need. He has some versatility if you need it. He's a true right tackle. He played against tough competition. He was great time and time again, tested numerous times. He's got so much to like. Again, maybe he's not there, but in the perfect world for me, he's one of those guys that's can't miss. He'd be the semi-realistic. He's the guy I want no matter what, if, ands, or buts. And then coming in after him, it's just Michael Mayer. There's just too much to like with him. Not even just his stats, his production, his profile, just being the hometown kid, already embracing, Cincinnati, talking about Joe Burrow, talking about the Bengals all the time, all the things he says about them. It's just fantastic. And there's just no better storyline for him and for the Cincinnati Bengals than just to kind of continue that, that fandom and make him a part of the team. And just, like I said, the hometown kid, such an amazing story growing up, played against him numerous times throughout my high school career. And it's just, seeing that come true. There's so many cool things with it outside of football. It's just an awesome storyline. And it helps that he's a damn good football player too.
Logan, you told us after one of the State of the Jungle shows that you crossed Michael Mayer up. Oh, I'm sorry. Michael Mayer couldn't guard you on the basketball court. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Let's talk a little more about that. Come on, Logan.
Well, thankfully, I did not play high school football because that, would not have gone well. But, he's not as good as a basketball player as he was a football player. So I had a little bit of a leg up there. It was JV basketball. He's not, again, he's training for the NFL. He's not really wasting his time out there. I was probably trying a little harder than he was. But I did score, we did do some things. But yeah, I mean, it
Oh,
is
you're
what it
so
is.
nice. You're so modest.
It's
You
just the
told me
truth. It's
you
just the
told me you
truth.
gave him buckets. That's
No,
what you
it's not.
said.
Well, we lost, so it
You
didn't
still
work
gave him
out
buckets.
much, but
You still gave you
yeah.
gave Michael Mayer first potential
Mm-mm.
first tight end off the board, absolute buckets back in high school. He couldn't guard you. Listen, that is what you that is a story you'll be telling your kids, your grandkids. You see that tight end who they call Baby Gronk, that tight end that was potentially the first tight end drafted off the board. I gave him buckets in high school, but in all seriousness, Ev, who is your can't miss player that the Bengals have to have if they're sitting there at 28?
Oh gosh.
Realistic, of course.
Well, I don't mean to bag on Logan here, but he kind of stole my guys, both my guys I was considering right out from under me. So just echo his statements that if you're looking, when you say can't miss, if you're looking for a prospect who maybe they're not the home run hit, but you know they're not going to be a bust and they're going to give you good return on investment, Michael Mayer absolutely checks that box, right? So the big concern about him is he just doesn't have the super high-end athleticism that, you know, most tight ends drafted in the first round do. But he does other things so well, like uses his body to box out defenders, uses his frame really well, has great hands, can run routes still, and averaged, I think, over 2 yards per route run. So even being the focal point of his offense at Notre Dame, and people knew it was coming, they still couldn't slow him down. And he's got a little bit of shake after the catch, you know, not anything like Mr. Kraft over there at South Dakota State, but it definitely, he's a good prospect who you could feel great about, that is maybe not going to give you the super high-end athletic plays, but is going to be a very reliable option for you consistently. And then, of course, Darnell Wright, who fits need, value, everything that you'd want. Has experience playing both sides of the line. Obviously didn't look so great at left tackle for Tennessee, but at least has that swing versatility. But he sits right in at right tackle for you, and that's that.
Well, I'm going to go with the easier pick. The guy that I've been saying since I was at the combine and I came back on the show and I said we did a show live from Indy, actually. And I talked about this. Michael Mayer, to me, seems like the pick if he's still sitting there at 28. And I think that there's a good chance that he's still sitting there at 28. A lot of mock drafts have the Packers going after him. I don't see that. A lot of mock drafts have the Detroit Lions going after him. The same Detroit Lions that gave up, TJ Hawkinson, who I consider to be a better tight end than Michael Mayer. I don't see that. I think Michael Mayer is still there at 28. What do you like? Let's talk about that for a little bit. I know it's not the sexy pick, right? People want the Bengals to go big. They want Kalijah Kancey if he's there, and that would be a good pick. Although I don't like the fact that he lacks in the running game. People want Darnell Wright. I would love Darnell Wright. We need a protector for Joe Burrow and a guy that could truly be an anchor there. People want cornerback, but you have to ask yourself this question. And I saw somebody saying this on Twitter. Oh, well, you can keep just picking up free agent tight ends each and every single. Doesn't that get tiresome at some point? At some point, you want to have a guy that you can grow, that you can build. To me, you guys don't have to agree with me. That's the beautiful thing about this show, right? The viewers don't have to agree with me. My co-hosts don't have to agree with me. My best friend / the producer, Daniel, does not have to agree with me. It's okay. And I get it. I've been wrong before, and that's fine. But Michael Mayer, to me, makes a lot of sense for the Bengals. He's a guy that is good at a lot of things, great at nothing. He's a good pass blocker. He is good at catching the ball, right? And the Bengals look for more complete prospects at the tight end position, or any position for the most part. They don't want project players. That's why I started noticing people are starting to stop talking about Darnell Washington, because I was trying to lead everybody to that light. Bengals are never going to draft him. They were never going to draft him.
It was just the combine luster.
It was the combine.
The combine luster's
the
worn off.
underwear Olympics. I get it. It makes everybody excited to hear about it. But I'm here to tell you right now, Michael Mayer, let's talk about it. Is it bad if the Bengals get Michael Mayer? They shore up the tight end position, right? You have him as your tight end for at least 5 years, right? Because you have the 5th-year option, assuming that he plays well, right?
Right.
You have a guy that Joe Burrow in this offense can grow with. They also solve the slot receiver position, so it's less of a pressing need when Tyler Boyd's contract does come up. Okay, do you have to re-sign Tyler Boyd? No. Why? Because you have a guy that can also act as another pass catcher for Joe Burrow, for this offense. So to me, there's a lot of upside for picking a tight end. And I get it, it's a deep tight end class, but everybody says it's a deep tight end class until guess what? It's not a deep tight end class. Why? Because people start coming off the board. It's a deep tight end class, but for us in Cincinnati, at 28, you have the ability, right? Think about this. At 28, you have potentially the ability to get one of the more upper echelon players, the can't miss prospects at tight end. Why? Because all the other picks like cornerback, like defensive line, like defensive tackle, like offensive tackle are coming off the board. A tight end position is looked at as a luxury position. So the Bengals can go out there and grab a person that is, in other drafts, potentially, if it wasn't so many quarterback needy teams or defensive line needy teams or offensive line needy teams out there, you'd have the position to be, you probably wouldn't be in a position to grab that guy. But now you're in a position to grab said tight end. You grab that guy. That's a blue chip prospect, a guy that your team can grow with, right? Let's actually talk about the positives in a team drafting Michael Mayer or any of these tight ends. You have the ability to help transform your offense. And for me, I understand tight end is a luxury position. I just think it makes a lot of sense.
I think with the tight end position, a lot of people kind of, for Bengals specifically, a lot of people, and I guess all other fan bases, when you're considering drafted a tight end, a lot of people just like to say, tight end's just not that of an important position anymore. And like, I get it, but like the good tight ends can impact the game in so many ways. Even the average tight ends, like there's not that many people on the field that truly have an impact in the run game, in the pass blocking game, in the run game, in the run blocking game, in the receiving game. Like, I mean, I know they don't impact any of those areas massively, but they're one of the few positions on the field that truly impacts the offense in all levels. And I know that's like, again, that doesn't matter to some people, but to a team like the Bengals who needs a little bit more in each of all these areas, it really can take you from, a good offense to a great offense. It shores up everything, gives you a little more juice everywhere. It's just good. Like, don't be afraid to take a tight end in the first round if they're good.
Right. Like, let me just say this for a second. Like, we keep saying it's a deep tight end class, class. So let's talk about that for a second. That's why I love this show. And that's why I love talking with you guys, like talking ball with the boys each and every single week. Are the Bengals a team that are going to trade up and try to get a guy? Let's on, right?
No.
Can you guys answer that?
They will not.
No, they won't,
probably
right?
not.
So typically the Bengals are going to stay pat, right? They're going to stay put.
Stay pat, trade back, maybe a couple spots, but not too far.
So let me ask you a question. What is the likelihood, right? Because we keep saying it's a deep tight end class. What is the likelihood that one of those tight ends that we keep saying the Bengals can draft in the second round are actually going to be there in the second round, when people are like, well, we got our blue chip prospect at cornerback, at left tackle, at blah, 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 blah in the first round. Then they come back in the second round. Those same teams still have a need at the tight end position, and they see that blue chip tight end prospect sitting there. And then what are they going to do? They're going to draft them. So then what happens? The Bengals are in a situation in the second round in which they're robbing Peter to pay Paul, essentially. And they're like, holy crap, we have to get a tight end. So that's when you start reaching. That's when you probably go out and you grab a guy like Sam Laporta or one of these other tight ends who you may not be in love with, but you like, and you say they can do the job sufficiently and efficiently. Maybe that's when you start reaching on prospects instead of seeing a guy sitting in the first round. This is all hypothetically speaking, of course, saying that a big right tackle from the University of Tennessee is sitting there by the name of Darnell Wright, which I'm in favor of taking, by the way. I think if Darnell Wright is sitting there at 28, you have to draft him. But I see people asking about Dalton Kincaid. For me, if Michael Mayer is sitting there and then Dalton Kincaid is sitting there, I'm drafting Michael Mayer. Why? Dalton Kincaid is already coming into the National Football League older with back problems. With back problems. With back problems. I don't want a guy that's going to break down in 2 years that probably won't see the life of his contract. I don't want that. I don't want that.
It goes back to that risk with the tight end position. And, like I just talked about why you should draft a tight end in the first round. And I think the ceiling of Dalton Kincaid is phenomenal. But him, with the age and with the injuries, the odds of him not hitting that ceiling are so much higher than a number of these other prospects. And then when you're taking a risk at a position that might not be the most valuable, that's when it's an issue. Tight ends, surefire tight ends are fine. A prospect like Michael Mayer is fine because you know what he is, you know what you're getting, you know he can help you.
Yeah. And the disc golf dad, you said they traded up last year, but did they trade up in the first round last year? No. Did they trade up in the second round last year? Did they? No. That's not what the Bengals do. So what we're missing, we can keep naming all these guys out there saying this guy's available, that guy's available. Well, the Bengals could do this, Bengals could do that. What we're failing to realize is those teams that would have selected those guys in the first round, typically had they not had other needs, guess what? It's going to come back around in that second round. They're going to draft those guys. So when that pick comes, don't just throw tight end names out there. Don't throw out a Wiley. Don't throw out guys that are not on the same level of a Michael Mayer.
Hopefully
Or
not in the first
don't just throw out names.
Yeah, to your point, it almost happened in our War Room episode last week. We got Tucker Kraft, and he was pretty much the last tight end you feel comfortable with taking that position. And if somebody else just would have took him, then we would have been, we would have been in a position to where, do we want to reach out a tight end? No, we wouldn't have. And then we kind of just would have been a little screwed in the position. So it's a deep class, but if there's a lot of good people, there's still nothing wrong with taking the one that's the best.
Right.
Yeah, I think the argument against tight end, which like Logan touched on, there's a degree of certainty to Michael Mayer knowing all the things that he can do. But obviously the argument is, like he said, tight end is not as valuable as a position. You're not getting as big of a return on your investment as if you hit on a cornerback or a defensive end or a tackle, right? And that's completely fair. But at the same time, you don't want to reach on a guy at those positions when you do have somebody who can impact the game in so many ways like Mayer can. Is it going to be the high-end return on investment? Are you going to be saving? Are you going to be getting a lot of surplus value in terms of the money saved for getting him on a rookie contract? No, not necessarily. And when you talk about Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Mark Andrews, Dallas Goedert, were these guys drafted in the first round? No, they weren't. They are some of the guys who developed and panned out, but that took years to get to that point.
And correction, the Bengals did. Thank you guys. You guys are right. You guys,
CTV.
the Bengals did trade up last year in the second to give Cam Taylor. I completely forgot because they gave up a 6-rounder to do it.
Yeah.
But my thing is, if I'm of the old mantra, if there's a guy that you want, you draft him. You draft him. If there's a guy that you love, what are you about to say? If there's a
Drew Sample, that's what I'm about.
Oh, come on now. But that I mean,
That's
I agree with you.
we love
But
this
you're-
guy, and we're
you're
going
right.
to take him regardless of
But guess
what
what?
everybody else thinks.
This coaching staff, to their credit, they were not equipped in that moment. They
fair.
were not in. They were
They
not
had a
equipped.
very quick turnaround
They had
that
a
off
very quick turnaround, right? To draft
Just
that
met
guy.
some of their
They
coaches at
also
the
gave Preston
combine.
Brown a contract extension that
Yeah, that
offseason,
was
right? So for me,
a lot of
if you
questionable
want a
decisions
guy,
offseason.
especially if a blue chip prospect like a Michael Mayer is sitting there, you draft him. You draft him at 28. If you love him that much, if he's that high on your board, you draft that guy and you ask questions later. Nobody, listen, regardless of what Bengals fans say, everybody's hemming and hawing right now. Bengals fans are going to come together regardless of whatever that pick is, and they're going to be like, all right, we're going to rally behind that pick, to be quite honest with you.
Yep.
Everybody's going to rally behind that pick. That's what's going to happen. So for me, I'm just saying, are you willing to risk? Because if Michael Mayer is there in the 28 with the 28th overall pick, I can assure you he will not be there for much longer.
Well, and the question is too, okay, like people are upset that you're going Michael Mayer and not tackle because the Bengals need a tackle. The Bengals need a tackle. Offensive line, we've heard it plenty, right? How many tackles do we assume go in the first round? Because this is where you get the guys who have the size, who have the athleticism, the traits that you want in a starting tackle. It's 4, 5. If you're talking about that, then you're looking at DeJuan Jones staring you in the face and saying, man, do I want to take a risk on a guy who didn't test, showed up to his pro day heavy, and already has a bunch of weight concerns? Didn't do anything at his pro day. Guys, pro days are like the easiest thing you can do. They will pad the numbers for you. They will give you the workouts that you only want to do that make you look good. Everyone's going to talk you up. The fact that he didn't even participate is just, it's a giant red flag for me. And you don't want to take red flag tackles reaching for need in the first round. You don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. It ends poorly, and maybe it hits, but that's not the kind of swing you want to take in the first round. If there's a Darnell Wright, if you're a fan of Anton Harrison, then okay, I can hear you. I hear the argument. But if all these guys end up going off the board and it's like, hey, do you want DeJuan Jones or Matthew Bergeron? Like, you're talking about those guys versus Michael Mayer. Give me Michael Mayer.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we all have our prospects that we like in this draft. I think we all in agreement. How do we all feel of Darnell Wright sitting there?
Yeah. I mean, he's the 1A for me. I mean, obviously Yeah, no questions asked
If,
for me there.
if we're operating under the assumption that absolutely no way on earth Kalashik Kansey makes it there, then yeah, I think Darnell Wright is my first pick at that spot.
Yeah, I agree.
I've got some, that the people were talking about. They were saying, how would you guys feel if Emmanuel Forbes is the pick at 28, cornerback?
I know Evan would love that.
So here's the thing.
Honest opinion. Honest opinion.
I love cornerbacks. Everyone knows this. I say you can never have enough talented DBs. It is crucial. It is an extremely valuable area, and it is a weak link position, much like offensive line, where you need to be solid all the way through or people will attack you. And if you can get ball to production, like from a guy from Emmanuel Forbes, that is incredibly valuable. He does not play small. At the same time, we talked about red flags, and we want to have as clean of prospects as we can if you're going to be taking that swing in the first round. He is literally in the 0th percentile, in weight. So again, that's not saying he won't succeed. That's not saying he can't. I believe he was at the Bengals for a visit, right?
Yeah.
If they're doing their work on him and say, hey, there's a lot you can do with sports science and nutrition and the way that they can project how much muscle mass you can put on based on your frame, based on your height, your length, all those things. If they say, hey, we feel good that we can put 10, 15 pounds of muscle on this guy in the next 2 to 3 years, and he's 176 or 180 instead of 165 or 166, then you're talking about, okay, you feel a little bit better about that. That's just homework that we can't do that they can. I would not be disappointed by the pick, but again, there is that red flag that needs to be acknowledged where if you're taking a guy, like let's say it was a tackle, let's say it was a wide receiver, and you were taking a 5'6" wide receiver in the first round, at the back end of the first round, even if he's the most clean prospect you've ever seen, you're still going to go, man, this guy's as big as Andrew Hawkins. And again, that's just, we have to have that same energy and that same mindset where, again, we have to check that box. But the ball production, the tackling, the physicality, all the mentality is there. So he doesn't have the small mentality. He plays bigger than he is. But again, when you're going up against DK Metcalf, you're going to have to move him around in the slot, the outside, a little bit of that maybe safety hybrid role, because there are going to be guys who are 215, 220 pounds that if you're trying to be physical with them, they are bigger, longer, and stronger. And he's going to have to find a way to compensate for that.
I've got something real quick, and this is something we haven't talked about enough. Like, what if a guy like Brian Brees, what if he were to fall that far?
Injuries are a concern for me for that guy. I don't know. They just kind of concern me a little bit.
I'm there with you. I mean, for Brees in general, I'd like the fit with Cincinnati again, but we're talking about if he were to fall to us in that position, it goes down to what Malik just said, and it's the injury history of everything. And the more I watch some of these, I'm really falling in love with this edge class at 28 too. I think there's a lot of guys that make sense in there.
McDonald,
obviously,
old McDonald had a farm.
There's Will McDonald's interesting for sure. There's some other guys I like before Will McDonald, but still, I think that. I back to Forbes. I think the production is great. Obviously, analytically, he may not be the most appealing player in the world, but I think if it ends up being defense at 28, I'm hoping it's more of an edge rusher than anything.
And just to touch on Brian Brees a little bit, interviews are going to be huge and critical for him. And the reason I say that is because we've mentioned before, his sister had, I believe it was terminal brain cancer and passed away in the middle of the season. And on top of that, I believe he also had some sort of issue with his kidney or his liver to start the season too. So when you're talking about, you've got lack of production that you don't necessarily expect from a guy where you expected more, but he has all these things going on mentally, all these things going on physically. And then at the end of the season in the championship game against North Carolina, he looked like the guy you expect him to be. And so you can sit there and talk yourself into, wow, if my sister just died unexpectedly, and I was dealing with these physical issues of I just had to go to the hospital and sit out and gain 40 pounds or 30 pounds of bad weight because I wasn't working out and doing stuff. Then there is that understanding of, hey, I get why the production wasn't there. And then you look at the end of the season and say, as he got more in shape, as maybe he processed things a little bit and was able to get back to his regular life and training, he looked like the dominant prospect you would expect. So I think those interviews are going to be big for him, for teams that want to check that box and say, we understand where they're coming from and just doing their homework on that.
I mean, for sure. The guy's uber talented. You know, he has so much talent. I just think that, again, I number one, I don't think he'll be there. Number two, I just think that the injuries do sort of play a part in it a little bit, and it does cause you to pause as a team, especially if there's another prospect on the board that you like just as much, or if not better. So before we get into my favorite part of the show where we start answering your questions, make sure you guys give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. We're trying to get to 4,500 subscribers. We're super close. Appreciate your support that you guys give us each and every single week. And turn on post notifications. Give this video a like if you haven't done so already. Daniel, let's get to the questions.
Oh yeah. So I want to go to our, one of the biggest supporters of the show, Marissa. She talked about 2 edge, and I want to get you guys' thoughts. Will McDonald and also BJ Ojulari. What's your guys' thoughts on BJ?
I mean, I tweeted about BJ today, actually. I think the more it comes closer to draft night, I think BJ is becoming more and more my favorite pick at 28 when you mix in the realism, the need, and everything. And, to compare him to Will McDonald, I think there's a lot of similarities in their game. One just happens to be 2.5 years younger than the other. BJ Ojulari is like the second youngest player in the draft, maybe the third. And, I think that the Bengals really like, too, that I kind of caught my eye with him, that where I kind of saw the similarities and just, why I think he can be a realistic pick at 28. Because LSU always does a thing where you have your numbers, and your numbers are your captains, your high character players, and he wears one of those numbers. And the Bengals love their captains. They love their high character guys. So that's a massive box to check, for a prospect perspective from the Bengals. And the production is great. The age is great. There's a lot of things to like about BJ Ojulari, not only off the field, but on the field as well. So I'm all in on Ojulari at 28.
He's got one of the best pass rush repertoires.
Yep.
He's got like good technique where sometimes you get those guys like an Isaiah Foskey uses his size really well. Doesn't have great bend, but uses his size extremely well. BJ Ojulari just has he's a pass rusher. He's polished. He's got the bend. He's got the athleticism. And like Logan said, he's got the age where he can still grow into his body a little bit more. The concerns are in the run game, but you're really not drafting him to be that. You're drafting him to be your specialized edge rusher to come in and spell Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard on some downs and just get after the quarterback and use that repertoire, use that athleticism. And I really, really like him as a prospect. That I agree with Logan. I think he's moving up. So I'll pass this off to Malik to let him wax poetic on Will McDonald a little bit.
I love Will McDonald. That's my guy. Like the length, like the size. BJ Ojulari just reminds me a little bit of Carl Lawson, just a little bit, just a tad bit of him. I'm good. I like
Carl Lawson didn't have the flexibility that
he did, but also
has.
he lost.
He was
his
much
knees.
more the power.
He lost his knees though too. You got to remember that as well. Yeah, I mean, I like Will McDonald a lot. I'm a big fan of that guy. Guy can stop he's good against the run, good against the pass. I think he has huge upside. One thing I will say, BJ Ojulari has over him, his pass rush repertoire is insane, man. He seems like he has
a deep bag, as they like to say.
He got a deep bag of tricks, man. He's like me on the basketball court. Deep bag of tricks, man. Step back 3, man. But no, in all seriousness, Will McDonald's my guy. But I guess if you're asking me who I'd rather have, BJ Ojulari or Will McDonald, I got to go with Will McDonald.
So quick question on Will McDonald. So he's going to be 24 by the time the season rolls around. Okay. And he's been in college for 4-5 seasons now. And he's still got a 6'3" frame, long arms. Only 240 pounds, though, after being in a college weight program for 4 or 5 years. So is that something that, obviously, again, this is a box that the Bengals strength and conditioning coaches can check and say, hey, we project he can put on this. But being that he's 24 already and kind of developed a bit and is more developed than the 20-year-olds, than the 21-year-olds coming out, is that any concern for you?
Not really. I definitely think that, I mean, I think if you're looking at it, what I would do versus what the Bengals would do is two totally different things. I think the Bengals would prefer BJ Ojulari over Will McDonald personally, but I just think that for me, I like Will McDonald's length, his size. I like a guy that can, that I still feel like he can develop his pass repertoire. I especially think if you pair him with a coach like Marion Hobby, man, that guy helped Sam Hubbard unlock another gear as well. I definitely think he could help Will McDonald unlock another gear. In terms of the weight issue, I mean, when you get in the NFL, you kind of get on the NFL weight regimen as well, where they have you gaining weight and things of that nature. So I don't think that would be too much of a concern.
Right.
But
not taking shots at Iowa State, but an NFL program is a little bit
we're taking shots at Iowa State. We're taking shots at Iowa State. I just think that Will McDonald could develop his pass repertoire working with a guy like Marion Hobby and also working with a guy in Trey Hendrickson as well.
Appreciate our guy Michael always being in the chat asking questions. He said, without demanding specifics, do you guys think the Bengals go offensive player or defensive player? Just a generic in round 1.
Man, that's tough.
I think it's going to end up
That's
being
tough.
defense by default. I think, they'd want to tackle or, Michael Mayer specifically. But I don't see them really being there. So I think at that point, best player available is by far going to be defense. So
You think Mayer goes before the Bengals pick?
I think he ends up
Okay.
going before. I mean,
Do you think Dalton Kincaid gets
Say it
picked
again.
before him with the
Say it
back
again.
issue? Or do you think Michael Mayer is the first tight end off the board?
I mean, it depends how much people care about that back issue.
I care a lot.
I personally, I wouldn't draft Kincaid in the first round. I mean,
Guys, I can see a world in which the Bengals draft Dalton Kincaid.
I can
though,
see it
in
too, and I
28th.
don't know
can't.
how I'd feel.
That would terrify me.
It'd be a fun. He better be good quick.
He's
You know,
already
it better be a
already
fun
older. He's
couple
already
rookie
got
deals.
back issues.
But man, if he again, we just we've talked a lot of bad about Dalton Kincaid. But if Dalton Kincaid stays healthy, and he's good.
He's
it would
basically a
be
receiver
so
and a tight end. But
awesome.
no, I don't want to
But
slight
it's-
him.
it's
That's
hard
just
to-
red flags all
yeah.
over the place.
I think 28th is an offensive player. I do.
regardless if even if Michael Mayer's in a tackle, Darno, a tackle's not there that you necessarily
that's the
like.
scenario that has.
That's
I
what I'm
lean
at.
offense. I think
Yes.
offense as well.
I
But
think
also,
offense-
if you think Wright and Mayer are not going to be there, I would absolutely say defense.
So it just depends. I mean,
So now we're basically penciling saying the Bengals 2 picks are Mayer or Wright. That's basically
I
what you're
guess
doing
that's
here.
the way we're
I mean, for
going,
our
man.
I'm not doing
Yeah,
that.
that's-
I mean, okay, what
Mm.
offensive player outside of those two would you be okay with at 28?
I mean, like
That's the
Bijan
question.
Bijan,
Robinson, if he
question mark?
falls, like that's
Jameer Gibbs.
too early for Gibbs for me as
I
an
don't think the
Alabama
Bengals
fan.
draft a running back in the first. Now,
don't
Bijan, listen, every front office that says I never draft a running back in first is going to be forced to come to that
Until the
when-
guy's
when-
staring
when
you in the
Bijan
face.
is thin.
with
But I
Bijan's
think Bijan's
profile.
a Buffalo Bill. I do. I think Bijan's a Buffalo Bill or my guy from the Buffalo Bills beat Mookie Hawkins. You guys can check him out. He's hell bent believing that Darnell Washington is going to be the Bills pick at 27.
Let's hope so.
So I want to go to our guy Pedro. He's asking a good question. He said, "I see a lot of guys mocking Musgrave and Washington at 28. Do you think that both of them are being overhyped? Because I know one of the big guys just mocked Musgrave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To the
that was
Bengals?
gross.
Yeah,
Yes, at 28.
Yeah.
It was Lance Zerlin.
Yeah.
But that
Well,
mock was crazy.
Here,
To be fair,
if
It was
I
crazy.
remember correctly, though, I spoke with Luke Musgraves at
you
the
did.
combine, and I believe the Bengals had shown no interest in him. They hadn't, but then again, they
I
didn't.
think that might be
Medicals.
Lance Zerlin, just like, hey, I've
Yeah.
put out a ton of mock drafts.
Like
in
the
the
Bengals
last
met
2,
with
3
the
months.
Bengals
Let me
met
do
with-
something
the
different. just to
Bengals met
play
with a
it.
crap ton of tight ends, and Luke Musgraves was not one of them.
I mean, and I know they met with Dalton Kincaid, but them not being interested.
They not only did they meet with Dalton Kincaid, they were the first team to have
which
to meet with Dalton Kincaid, and they had a long ass meeting with him.
which
as
is
well.
interesting to me. Not that they're similar, but Luke Musgrave's a guy that's been hurt a ton.
Yeah.
That's why he's a big question mark. So and Dalton Kincaid has a pretty serious injury as well. So it's kind of interesting to see them show no interest and heavy interest in players with kind of similar-ish skill sets when healthy.
Somebody's asking our guy Sean. He said, if Jackson Smith and Jigba somehow fell to 28, would you guys consider taking him?
No.
I'd consider. I probably wouldn't, but I'd consider. To answer the
Evan,
question.
you're smiling.
Don't roll your eyes at me, Malik. Come on. I'm at least going to think about
Yeah,
it.
that's
okay.
that's where I'm.
You
at.
got Tyler Boyd up after this year. I know there's other places that you can attack that you can get more value out of. But again, if let's say in this scenario, Mayer is off the board, Wright is off the board, Will McDonald's off the board. I know that's his guy. I'm at least thinking
Clark
about
Phillips
it. I'm
is off
not.
the board.
Yeah, Clark. Sorry. Carrington Valentine is off the board.
First round.
Yeah.
No, at that point, I'm going defense.
Yeah.
I'm going defense all the way. I'm not drafting Jackson.
I'm
Smith
at
and
least
Jigba.
thinking about it. I'm not writing it off.
Think about
entirely,
it,
man.
and then we move on pretty quick.
That's how I envision it would go. But hey, do we want to do this? No. Okay. Next. That's how I envision it.
All right, Andrew's asking, are there any players that would be drafted at 28 that you guys you think the Bengals would strongly consider that would be called a reach by most people?
A reach?
A reach.
I mean, if you draft any tackle,
That you think that you guys would like for the Bengals?
that we would like.
actually like
somebody
at
who'd be
28?
considered a reach that we would be
That
like.
I
no,
would
it's
like?
Not.
oh man, yeah. Oh yeah, Jameer
Um,
Gibbs.
You think
Jahmyr Gibbs-
first round?
Jahmyr Gibbs, no, that I like that if the Bengals were to draft would be considered a reach.
Yeah.
Jahmyr
Yeah.
Gibbs would be considered a reach.
I
at
think
28.
that's a
Yeah.
good answer because obviously there's plenty of.
I don't
ways
know
to
if I
count
would
the football.
like that pick.
No, but it's
though.
what I like though.
I like the player. I don't like getting him at 28.
No, but this is what I like.
I don't care what you like, Malik.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
Yeah, I mean, there's a boatload of guys, man. I think that man, I think, yeah, you guys, I think Will McDonald probably would be considered a reach too.
Yeah,
at
I
28.
Maybe.
The-
I put Cam Smith out there as just a corner who
Yeah.
a lot of people
I like him a
he's,
lot.
he's climbing up boards right now, and there's talk.
So
I've
is
seen a lot of
Carrington
different-
Valentine.
I've seen a lot of different boards where he's gone like 15, 18, 20s. Like,
yeah.
so he's a guy I would think maybe.
I mean, I don't think he's necessarily. I mean, again, he's not a reach to me, which I guess is the question at hand here. Keon White, edge rusher from Georgia Tech, I like a lot. You know, I don't think he got kind of hyped up. He was pretty up there and one of somebody's big boards at the beginning of the draft cycle, and he's fallen down a little bit, but very productive, very, very, very good athlete. You know, he's in the similar tiers to Will McDonald for me, so I could see something like that. And he kind of fits more stereotypically what the Bengals kind of like at that position. So
Smash Adams is talking about Zach Charbonnet. Do you guys? He says that he doesn't understand the hype with Zach Charbonnet. What's your guys' thoughts on Charbonnet?
that's for you, Malik.
Respectfully, and I mean this in the most respectful way because sometimes I can come off as a jerk on this show, and I don't want to come off as a jerk.
You're a
Have
jerk,
you
I know.
watched his film? Have you watched that guy's film? I don't need to go to bat for that guy. That guy is an absolute baller. He's like a freight train. That's what he is.
I
And
understand the hesitation because he doesn't have that dynamic athleticism where he has the breakaway speed, but that's a
Yeah.
guy who's going to find the open holes, who's going to get the most out of the
Yeah.
runs that he can, that's going to run
Absolutely.
through contact.
Absolutely.
He's one of the safer running back prospects outside of the two that we talked about from Gibbs.
Not necessarily from a prospect standpoint. I think the guy I'm going to kind of compare him to was a much better prospect, but he kind of reminds me of what Najee Harris has been in the NFL so far. You know, he can do a little bit of everything. He's bigger. He's not the great athlete, but he's going to push forward. He's a good enough athlete to where he can, you know, get around you a little bit and, you know, use his strength to get through you. He's going to catch some balls. He's just a big guy that can do a lot of things, you know,
Mhm.
and sometimes that works out well. And sometimes it doesn't. So it's just, you know, I think there's a little bit of some risk obviously with him, but I think he's very good too. I mean, he's RB3 to me in this class pretty comfortably. Like, I mean, yeah.
And just because he doesn't have that breakaway speed or that dynamic
Yeah.
athleticism doesn't mean that he doesn't have ways to break tackles or make defenders
Yeah.
miss, because he does have kind of that array of the Madden moves, the stiff arms, the little
Yeah.
jukes, the subtle cuts that kind of destroy tackling angles and make things hard, especially when he runs as hard as he does with his size.
Jordan White's got a question about Carrington Valentine. What round would you guys draft
One,
Carrington Valentine?
one, trade up, give it all.
third.
Yeah.
Third.
Yeah.
Say something slick. Go ahead. Say something.
I already
slick.
said my piece.
Yeah,
I got my
okay.
joke in. I got my jab in.
The-
He went to the Browns.
Oh man, that was from our last War Room show.
Oh, Malik was beside himself. Oh man.
Because you told okay.
And
Hey,
Logan and John. Don't put this on me.
No, it was you.
Don't put that evil on me,
It
Ricky
was you.
Bobby.
It was you. It was all you.
So our guy, the platypus, keeping it on the cornerbacks. He said, "Would you guys rather have Forbes at 28 or Clark Phillips at 60?"
Ooh,
Second round.
Forbes.
I mean, this is such a cop out for the answer, but it just depends who I'm taking at 28 or who I'd end up picking at 60. But just pure talent value perspective, I think I'd rather take Forbes at 28.
No comment.
All right, our guy Robert's asking about can't pronounce the last name, but Israel, the running back from Pittsburgh. What round do you guys think he's gonna go at?
I think he can go as early as the second.
Yeah.
End of
Really?
the second, I do. I think he can go as early as the second, in the back end of the second. But I think he more realistic is probably going to go in the third.
I think back end of the third, like early fourth, is
Think so?
definitely. I mean, people come in with all those comp picks at the back end of the third round. I think you might be able to see a team just say, "Hey,
People
we're going
reach,
to
though.
prioritize that
People
right
reach
now."
all the time.
You
man.
know, they always say, it only takes
Mhm.
one guy, one team to fall in love with a guy.
Yeah.
So I can get that.
I think the third's
Third's a good
appropriate
spot.
answer.
Yeah.
Six Summers asks, "Are the Bengals done with free agency completely, or do you think that they're gonna make some more signings?"
I think they're still looking.
I think everything's on hold right now until
Yeah.
the draft, and then
I don't
you're
say
gonna.
everything's on hold.
Well,
I
no,
think,
not necessarily, but you're not going to go sign like a 1-year deal for an
No,
edge
man.
rusher when you
Yeah.
might get one in the first round, right? You don't want to go sign a Justin Houston when you might draft a Will McDonald
Yeah.
in the first
No,
round,
I would
right?
just-
I
sign
would just
Terrell
say just the Bengals are squarely focused on the draft now. Obviously, they're still going to try to look to add pieces to this roster, but don't expect anything major. I wouldn't expect anything too major.
Michael asked, do you think that the Bengals are going to take a kick returner or punt returner specialist in the draft?
We've been saying this for like every draft for the last like 3 years.
It just depends. I think they would like one, but I don't think they're going to take a guy that's
Yeah.
necessarily kick return only. There's a couple receivers that, profile as a slot receiver, that can kick return, punt return. There's a couple corners that, look like decent depth corners that
Mhm.
can, go return kicks. But I don't think they're just going to ever just draft a guy, hey, you're going to punt return only. But there are some guys that kind of fit that description with kind of what we need a little bit. There's some corners, there's some receivers, there's even some running backs that can do it decent enough. So
Sean, he's always asking the best questions. He said, what is one player that the Bengals would take at 28 that would cause you to throw something at your TV?
DeJuan Jones.
I would be upset about that. I would definitely say Darnell Washington would be right there.
that's
Oh yeah,
crazy.
100%.
That's
Yeah.
That's crazy.
What about you?
But
Logan?
I mean, I don't know. Like Malik always says, I like to look at the good and everything, so it'd be really hard to do that for me. But I think
Somebody's got to be Mr. Positive on this show, right?
I mean, Luke Musgrave.
Oh,
I don't
God,
think that's
yeah,
really
that would
necessarily
definitely-
realistic,
Oh man,
but
Yeah.
that's one. Any tackle probably after those four, I wouldn't be very happy about. I mean, Harrison's whatever, but I wouldn't be that upset, I guess, where I'm throwing something at my TV.
that's where you start
So-
getting in that like, okay, we're probably
Yeah.
we're not reaching for the top shelf for the knee, but we're definitely going second
Yeah.
shelf up, And yeah, I agree. I'm on the same way with DeJuan Jones. First round, I think it's just too early with his red flags.
Daniel Jansen, this is going back to the beginning of the show. He said, why do we need a tight end when they have 3 top receivers? Isn't this overkill?
No.
It's for blocking. It's for attacking over the middle of the field. If you have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and they just keep running this cover 2 quarters kind of coverage where they are sitting on top of everything,
Yeah.
daring you to beat them over the middle of the field, you need someone to be able to attack that middle of the field. And that's a great way to do it, is get a tight end who can attack the seam, who can punish these linebackers in the middle of the field. And I think you're getting value in the run game. You're getting value in the passing game in terms of blocking. And then you're also obviously getting him as a weapon. Speaking, of course, about a guy like a Michael Mayer. I think there are ways they're going to contribute that maybe they don't get seen in the box score, but forcing teams to play a little bit less cover 2 to be able to hit that seam ball. How many times do we see Andy Dalton hit Tyler Eifert up that seam and it was just beautifully laid in? Joe Burrow has better touch than Andy Dalton. And believe me, if he can layer in the cover 2 and cover 3 hole shots like that, he can tear that seam apart. So that's where the value comes in for that tight end position.
And I think with the, I know tight ends are different, but if you even look at some of the games where we had T. Higgins out or Jamar Chase out, it's a lot easier to stop, to go double Jamar Chase, to go double T. Higgins. Tyler Boyd is a good slot receiver, but teams aren't really scared of Tyler Boyd anymore. He is what he is at this point in his career, and he's still a good player. But when you take away one of the 3, that's when the issues remain. We didn't have anybody who you could go get open. We were throwing the ball to Trent Irwin, who did a good job for most of the time, but you need somebody else that you can rely on. And there was no consistent, if you're, let's just say Jamar Chase is out, T. Higgins is getting doubled majority of the time. Tyler Boyd's, going to be fine sometimes, but then outside of that, your options run dry very, very, very quickly. With the tight end, it just, gives you another security blanket, another option, another man beater, gives you everything you need.
And another point to that real quick. In 19 games, Tyler Boyd had 87 targets. Yeah. In 16 games, Hayden Hurst had 82. So if we get that out to 19 games for Hayden Hurst, he was on pace to out-target Tyler Boyd in this offense. We talked about how down the stretch, it seemed like the running backs and the tight ends were becoming more of a focal point of the passing offense as they kind of found their identity. And Tyler Boyd kind of became an afterthought sometimes. And that's not to say anything about Tyler Boyd. It's just the way the offense kind of unfolded. And it's understandable to say, hey, we have Jamar, we have T, we have Tyler. Why do we need to add another weapon? Well, you were on pace to throw more targets to Hayden Hurst than you were Tyler Boyd. So adding a tight end to that room could definitely provide value.
Our guy Chuck is asking a free agency question. Eli Apple. He said, what are the odds the Bengals re-sign Eli Apple? Wouldn't mind seeing him on a multi-year deal.
I mean, I think Eli Apple is one of those guys that are always going to be sitting there if you want to bring him back. And we've, you know, I don't.
He's
think
waiting for the phone to ring.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much urgency there.
I feel like at this point, I mean, not that Sidney Jones is like just took his spot, but like I don't know if I can really see the point of bringing back Eli anymore.
That piece, you know,
yeah, but,
cornerback,
like,
you know.
I feel like, you know, they would just rather draft another corner to be their depth piece at this time. I'm not saying they won't. I think Eli, obviously, like you said, he'll want to be here and all that stuff. But, you know, I think once that Sidney Jones move happened, that was one of my first thoughts that, you know, they're probably not really just going to re-sign Eli. And I get it. But if they did too, it wouldn't surprise me. But if you sign Sidney Jones and draft a corner at some point, then like, you know,
you're feeling pretty good about where you are now. Yeah.
All right. A question from Who They Know It All said, at what position would make the most sense to double dip in the draft?
Defensive lineman.
At the same position? So like 2 edge players?
Oh, no, I was taking the cheap way out. I was just saying defensive
Oh,
line.
just like either interior D-line and
defensive back.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wish.
But what
think,
do you mean by defensive back? Safety, corner.
I think tight end and running back, if you're trying to get specific on positions based on whatever happens with the running back room that they have currently, I definitely, again, it's a 1-year deal for Irv Smith. Maybe you get Mayer early and then you circle back around in the 6th or the 5th and get a guy like Wiley, like a Will Mallory or something that you feel like maybe you can develop a little bit and use as a weapon.
Our guy Pedro has a scenario here, 3-round scenario. I want you guys to analyze. He said Darnell Wright at 28, Tucker Kraft at 92, or Mayer at 28, or Blake Freeland at 92.
We'll say those one more time.
Or I think he's not 92. He said Darnell Wright and Tucker Kraft, or Mayer and Freeland.
I'm taking Darnell Wright and Tucker Kraft.
I am too. Yeah.
Like that's like
I like Darnell Wright a lot better than Blake Freeland at the moment, and I am a fan of Kraft.
Yeah,
there we go.
I think for me, it's just more so, you know, I wouldn't want to take Freeland in the second. That's what it comes down to. If you replaced him with almost any other, you know, like player in that range, I probably would have said that one.
Right.
But I mean, Freeland's, we talk about a guy, he's got a lot of upside, but I mean, his floor is dirt low. So
needs a little more sand in the pants.
Yeah.
A little more sand in the pants.
I love what my man said in the comments section. He said, Logan got me on Stephen Gilmore's train. So give me Carrington, Valentine, and Gilmore. We double dip anywhere. Like
hey, yeah, rounds 6 and 7, right? I just had to get the side eye from Malik. I got to poke the bear a little bit.
So our guy Andrew said, will the Bengals draft a new backup quarterback or grab an undrafted free agent?
I think they're gonna get a free agent backup. I don't think they're gonna go rookie. I don't think so.
All right, and talking about a potential trade back scenario, let's say one of Levis or Hooker are there at 28. Do you guys see that the Bengals would trade back potentially?
Whoa, I was worried about the direction of that question.
I was worried
No.
I mean, at that point, I mean, it's not really up to them to trade back. I mean, I think they would answer the phone a little bit, but
yeah, I think a trade back is definitely good because we talked about it before the show. We've talked about it on the show. When you're doing your mock drafts, how many times are you like, man, I would love to take 2 or 3 guys in the 3rd round or the 4th round. So being able to move back 3, 5, 6 spots, still get a high end talent, because we remember T. Higgins was technically a 2nd round pick, but those guys are basically kind of that tail end of 1st round anyways. So I definitely think there's a lot of value if they can find a partner to trade back with and they feel comfortable about the prospects on the board. I think that'd be a great move.
Speaking about, going back to Darnell Wright really quickly, are you guys worried about Darnell Wright possibly being a 1-year wonder?
I mean, you got to worry about that with a lot of prospects at the end of the day. But when it comes out, you have to look at, when you go to these bigger schools too, it takes a while. I mean, being a freshman starting in the SEC, if you do good in that scenario, you're top of the top, you're top 5 pick, just like Jamar Chase, he had a crazy freshman year, and, crazy sophomore year. He was like, I'm not even going to play my junior year, It's like in those, it's really hard to be really good when you're really young in college football. So I think it's more, I guess it's some worry, to be fair, but I mean, the film does him justice. even if he, flatlines a little bit, he's going to be a solid right tackle. He gives you that versatility. Obviously, he might not hit the ceiling that, worries a little bit, but I think he's just going to be solid no matter what.
If you guys haven't done so already, make sure you guys give this video a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, please. We're trying to hit 4,500 and turn on post notifications. Next Wednesday is War Room Part 2, where we'll go through all of the Bengals 7th round picks, or we might make a trade. You never know. I think last time, did we make a trade last time?
At the end.
At the end, right? I
I
think we
around
made
7.
made a nice
7.
little trade, whatever the case may be. But so make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on post notifications, and give this video a like too. I don't know where we're at right now, but let's give this video a like as well.
Quick question from Alex. He said, where would you guys take Andrew Voorhees?
4th round.
I think that's a good spot. That kind of 3rd, 4th round area, that little turn right there. Yeah, I think that's a good spot.
I think that's appropriate value too. I mean, obviously, I'd like to see who we take with our first 3 picks, considering he's going to have to sit out a whole year. But I mean, yeah, I think the 4th round he's going to be a good pro. It might take him a little bit with the injury, but he's worth it.
Travis asked about the interior offensive line. He said, is there any chance we get a left guard in the draft to build depth or compete with Volson?
Cordell Volson, baby. I think it's the Volson trade.
I mean, I don't think they would take one very high. You know, you can never rule out a 5th, 6th, 7th rounder for the depth, for the versatility. That's
no guard in the 1st.
No guard.
I don't
Somebody
think
just
so
asked.
either,
You saw that? You saw that? Somebody.
No. I was not taking shots at anybody. I'm sorry, guys. No, I've seen other people caping hard for, hey, there's really, really talented guards in the 1st round, and I'm like, there's also talented guards in the 3rd round.
Somebody I said tweeted. Somebody just said, what if Osiris Torrance is there at 28?
I don't care. I want other more valuable positions that are actual positions of need.
Yep.
You need a tackle. You need cornerback depth. You need more juice and pass rush. And guard, when you already have a starter that is at least average-ish quality and is getting another year better after being, a 4th round pick? I'm willing to take that chance and just bring in competition, whether that's the middle of the draft or whether that's a free agent type guy.
Do you guys think that, speaking about the trade backs, do you think that there's any world where the Bengals get aggressive and they move up, with early in the draft?
If they have to give up serious capital, I don't think so. We talked about how valuable that capital is now, that they're trying to get younger, trying to get cheaper. I think giving up too many picks, like obviously maybe a 6th or 7th round pick is not as detrimental, but if you're giving up a 4th round pick to move up 3 or 4 spots, I don't know that I like that.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta trade. Like, I know this isn't for like how everybody pitches, but for me, like, I'm trading up when I'm like in the point where I think there's a player that I think can like change my franchise and do all these things. The Bengals are in a position where they have all their franchise changers, they have all their their studs and their superstars. So obviously they still could trade up, but I don't think they're going to be trading up massively where they're going to give up a bunch of picks or big hauls to move up that much. Obviously, maybe they move up, 28 to 25 to jump the Bills for a tight end or whatever it is. But like, I don't think we'd see anything.
Trade up for Bijan.
Our guy Travis is asking about a later prospect. He said, any thoughts on Corey Trice Jr., the cornerback from Purdue as a mid?
He's been getting a lot of love on Twitter today.
He's just big and fast. He's 6'3" and
what you like in a corner, right?
And runs, in the 4.4s. Like, I think that's kind of the theme of this draft class is big, tall, lanky corners that are athletes.
God, I love him.
And he's just another one of them. And he's ranked really low on the mock drafts that you see. But at the end of the day, those are the guys you take flyers on because, again, he's a 6'3" corner that runs in the 4.4s. Like, that's pretty worth it flyer to take.
I know some people are asking about, the Jonah Williams trade. And Malik, is there any news on trade talks related to Jonah Williams, or what do you think's going to happen with Jonah Williams?
No news.
All right. Eric is asking, any thoughts on the story out there? This is for everybody. On the story out there of NFL executives criticizing Orlando Brown and us plugging him in at the left tackle. Why is everyone praised on the Chiefs and Bills and hating on our team?
I think it's just kind of that perception. Like if you're talking about, the Bengals think they got a top 3 tackle, then yeah, I mean, I understand that perspective, but anyone who actually has that perception is they're in the wrong there. I mean, this is a very good tackle. This is a guy who's a top 10 tackle at one of the most premium positions. If he's 10, 11, 12, or 8, depending on, that range, like a Kirk Cousins is for quarterbacks, where somehow he's both between that 8 to 15 range. that's perfect, especially for what you've been getting out of your tackles for the Bengals the last couple of years.
Right.
So I let them talk. It's
Yeah.
everybody talking out the side of their mouth, probably maybe a little bit upset that they could not get a franchise tackle for $16 million a year.
Yeah, absolutely. And seeing that the fact that the Chiefs overpaid for Jawan Taylor, the Bears, where's the Broncos?
To change
The Bears?
positions.
Mike McGlinchey, Broncos overpaid for him.
Yeah, for $17 million.
Jordan's asking.
And by the way, let me just put this out there. Orlando Brown by far and away was the best tackle in free agency.
Hands down.
Like by far and away. This guy went to what, 4 Pro Bowls?
Mhm.
Come on now.
Jordan's asking a question to Evan. He said, Evan, what do you think of Cam Brown visiting the Bengals?
I mean, I can get on board with it maybe in like the middle rounds, but
There's better places to throw your darts.
right.
than
That's the
Cam
thing is
Brown.
I love my defensive backs. I don't love them so much that I just want to take all of them.
One
Sometimes I
thing
do,
I will
but-
say though is, and I mean this wholeheartedly, and this might be just be blind faith. If the Bengals drafted a cornerback, a defensive back, there's something that Lou Anarumo sees in them, and that guy has been a guy to turn around people's career. So, genuinely speaking, he was able to turn around Eli Apple's career. I have no doubt he's going to turn Sidney Brown's career around. I genuinely would not be surprised if Sidney Brown.
Sidney Jones.
I'm sorry. Why am I saying just Sidney Brown? Because Cameron Brown. That's what I'm thinking. I would not shock me if Sidney Jones turned into a star cornerback this year. Because if you remember when the Bengals signed Chidobe Awuzie, people were ridiculing that pick as well. And Daniel knew Chidobe Awuzie was my favorite cornerback.
Yeah, I remember that.
In the NFL for quite some time, and I always felt he was misused in Dallas, and obviously he dealt with injuries and stuff like that. But I think Sidney Jones we're going to see take a jump forward. I do think the Bengals need to have a plan in place just in case they get outpriced for Chidobe Awuzie next offseason when Chidobe Awuzie is a free agent. That being said, again, I wouldn't be shocked if Sidney Jones really took a step forward this year, as well as Cam Taylor-Britt.
With kind of talking about, Cam Brown, the question in general, I think we all do trust Lou. And, no matter what corner we take, we know, like we said, Lou sees something in them. But I guess my question is, how worried are we with like that player's development if this is his last year in Cincinnati? How much worth it is it to take a developmental corner, that Lou likes when this could be his last year in Cincinnati? Does that worry us with taking a corner down the board in these scenarios? I know we all trust Lou at the end of the day. If Lou's here, he'll make anybody, but how much does that worry you, if at all?
So I'm going to say this, man. And again, we're going off a little. I'm going off a little topic here. I think this was Lou's shot to be head coach, man. I really do, man. I think that is a lot of like people looking at him because of his age and stuff like that. And he's not getting a fair shake. And I think he's almost getting like the Mike Zimmer treatment that Zimmer had here in Cincinnati. And as it was said to me, Cincinnati doesn't highlight their coordinators enough, which also could be a reason why it hurts them when it comes time to, get their name, out there for head coaches. I was told directly, does that guy even want to be a head coach? Like, yeah, everybody gets into this business wanting to be a head coach. I know for a fact he wants to be a head coach. I know for a fact Brian Callahan wants to be a head coach. So it's one of those things where I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but I think losing Brian Callahan is going to be a real thing next year. Yeah. I don't know if losing Lou will be a real thing. People just want the new, sexy, young names as offensive minded guys. And if you're a defensive minded guy, doesn't matter if you're the best, as long as you're a sexy name and you're showing flashes and you say all the right things. I think you can get a head coaching job over a guy that is well deserving of it. And I'll say this as well: Vic Fangio hurt Lou Anarumo's chances to be a head coach. Vic Fangio at one point was the best defensive coordinator in the National Football League for years. He finally got his chance to be head coach with the Denver Broncos, and we saw how that checked out. So I think people are looking at it like maybe these guys are just best suited to be defensive coordinators or just position coaches, which is great for the Bengals, but I think it could hurt. I genuinely think that could hurt for I definitely think, and to your point as well, the Platypus says that is the thing is when the last defensive coordinator lifer to get hired, which was Matt Eberflus, and that hasn't turned out super well as well. So I think people are looking at these young quarterbacks they're drafting. They're like, let me pair my young quarterback with this. Lou at some point is going to get a chance to be a head coach like Mike Zimmer did.
Thank God it wasn't Arizona though.
Thank God, yeah, for overall. And what Wait till I tell you
Oh.
some stories behind the scenes of how that chick got.
Stuff coming out of there right now.
You-
We already knew it was a toxic organization before with all the stuff going on there, but you obviously know
Bro,
more things, and there's more
I
coming
heard
out.
rumblings. They didn't even call him. I heard rumblings. They didn't even call him. I heard that from a league source of mine. They didn't even call him to let him know he didn't get the job. He found out through Adam Schefter's tweet.
Wow.
That's crappy, man. So like, you know,
Well, we've heard plenty about who
yeah.
Bidwell is as a character.
So
guy,
I think when you look at it, though, I think some people think Lou will be a head coach I think he might get a chance to be a head coach at some point. I just think we might be looking a couple years down the road, and a couple more just a couple more great things. You would think that somebody would want this guy, man.
Yeah,
you would think. Like, I mean, this guy has slowed down Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. He really is the
every corner he's
orchestrator,
touched has just
man.
turned to gold.
Turning
man.
gold,
like
man,
I
so-
mean, just the cast-offs that other people didn't want. Cheeto was not a hot name.
No,
had
I
ups
always
and
thought I wanted the Bengals to get him so bad. And when I got wind, remember I put that tweet out. I was like, "What's your favorite bag of chips?"
Yeah,
and I was like, "Well, hint." Everybody's like, "Oh, what do you mean like Cheetos?" Hey, like so like it was like again, it's one of those things. I was really really pumped when he came here, man. But like at the end of the day, Lou deserves to be a head coach in the National Football League, even if he. But I'm happy he didn't go to a crappy place.
And the Thunder Roll.
Crappy place like Arizona.
Our guy Michael has a question about, the AFC North. Who would be a player that you guys would be most upset to see drafted within the AFC North? Whether that's the first round, is there any player that'd be like, damn, Can I do
Malik's for him? I'm gonna take a shot. I'm gonna guess the team and the player.
Okay.
Will McDonald to the Steelers.
I thought you were going back to Carrington.
He went to the Browns. No,
I don't know that
Will's your guy, man.
I like Will McDonald.
Wouldn't you like to see him anywhere else but in Pittsburgh?
It would piss me more off to see him in Baltimore. That would piss me off. Yeah, because Baltimore knows how to actually use pass rushers.
Yeah.
Shots fired.
All right, our guy's got Pedro has a question for Evan. He said, Evan, what do you think about Darnell Wright, being considered the 70th best player on PFF's board?
I think that
slander.
I heard
slander.
I heard Mike talking about
slander.
him. I think the tape at left tackle is,
he won't. He's so nice.
I think the tape at left tackle is concerning for them. I think that they're just not as high on him, but they are on guys like Anton Harrison. And that's just kind of a difference of opinion in a lot of the draft boards that are out there right now. I think they're paying attention to a lot, saying, hey, he's got good foot speed, but he's maybe a little inconsistent, maybe a little grabby sometimes. And I'm willing to overlook a little bit of those early years at Tennessee just because there was a lot of turnover going on in Tennessee. They, in the last 6-7 years, have just been churning out people left and right. And I think they finally got some stability this year and looked like a competent team because they were just laughably bad for quite a few years there. Quite a few Tennessee fans that I have as friends that were, they're part of the all this is our year team, right? Right up there with the Browns. So I want to at least, when we talk about teams that are in the dumps, we saw it with LSU a little bit this year, how some of the players checked out a little bit. Saw it sometimes when you just get those situations where the coaching doesn't feel right, the chemistry on the team doesn't feel right. I'm willing to cede a little bit of judgment there that maybe some other people aren't, where they look at his earlier tape and say, oh yeah, it was just this 1 year. We're a little bit concerned about how confidently he can anchor in the run game and how he might get a little grabby and lunge a little bit more than you'd like. But again, these are all things that I would feel good about. If I say I have got a Frank Pollock, he's got the tools, and that's what you want out of a first round tackle is you want the size and the athleticism, and he has both, and he carries 330 pounds as good as anybody.
Our guy Travis has a wide receiver question for you guys. 3 guys: Marvin Mims, Xavier Hutchinson, and Jonathan Mingo. What's your thoughts on them to the Bengals?
Marvin Mims, I like.
Marvin Mims would be fun, and he could definitely fill that vertical slot role and kind of be that Tyler Boyd replacement. I don't know if he returned kicks and punts, but I mean, with his athleticism, I feel like that's something that he could do. Just to get him a little bit of time on the field. I know Xavier Hutchinson is a Twitter favorite, And I know Mingo, I believe, is one of Sands' favorites later targets. But do you have anything you want to offer on either of those guys?
I mean, I think Mims is a little bit out of the Bengals' range. I think he's just going to go higher.
Go in the
than
middle of that 2 and 3 spot.
Yeah, the earliest I'm considering a receiver for the Bengals is around 3. And I think that's still not necessarily my favorite thing in the world. So I think with Hutchinson, he's your bigger slot. You can do. He's nothing crazy as an athlete, but he's going to be a productive slot receiver in the NFL. Nothing crazy as an athlete, but just a good receiver. And then Mingo's been getting a lot of hype lately. I'm not really sure why it started, but he's a good player, no doubt about it. But again, he's a bigger slot guy. He kind of looks like a tight end on film, especially if you go and watch some of his Senior Bowl stuff. The dude's huge. I think they're both good fits. I don't necessarily think, I just don't know if they're the style of slot receiver the Bengals want anymore. I feel like the Bengals want a more of your smaller, twitchier kind of slot receivers. I think, if they wanted players like Tyler Boyd, and some of these guys, that it would make sense. Or even if they were going to continue to have bad tight ends, then a guy like Mingo makes sense because he is so big. I think the Bengals are trending to where they want more speed at that position, where Mims is kind of more like the guy they want there. But I just don't think Mims is the player they want at that slot position, but Mims is not going to be in their price range come draft time.
One last question for you guys from Robert John. He said at 28, if Cansey, Darnell Wright, and Michael Mayer are there, who are you guys taking?
Darnell.
Yeah, I really love Cansey and would love him there to put him right next to DJ Reader and really just make that defensive line ferocious. But it's not as pressing of a need as right tackle is. So I think I would go with Darnell Wright as well.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, we want to thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode of State of the Jungle. We'll be back next week, Wednesday, same time, for part 2 of the War Room presented by First Star Logistics. Tomorrow, if you guys want to make money, right? If you guys want to make money, if you're a UFC fan, this weekend is UFC 287, right, Daniel? 287, Israel Adesanya taking on Alex Pereira. If you have not done so already, make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel and turn on post notifications. We'll be going live and we'll be giving out our best bets. We haven't done this yet. I used to do it all last year, but we're officially doing it, giving out all of our best bets, trying to make you guys a crap ton of money this upcoming weekend. So if you're a UFC fan, or maybe you just want to make money this weekend, trust me, the other night we had on a $4,300 parlay that we gave out on the show. So betting is now legal in Ohio. So I'm talking squarely to my Ohio bettors out there. If you want to make money, make sure you download the Betfred app. I'm going to give you some plays tomorrow live on our UFC 287 preview show to help you guys cash in this weekend. If you guys plan to be here, do me a huge favor. Put the money emoji down in the comment section. I'm trying to make you guys money. We had 180 plus people in here. I really hope that we have 100 plus people on tomorrow's live stream, because we truly are making people money by giving them the best bets for UFC 287. So again, if you want to make money, make sure you are here tomorrow live at 6 p.m. Eastern time, as we'll be going live for the right bet, trying to give you guys all of our official plays for this weekend's card to help make you some money. Anyway, we'll see you guys next time on State of the Jungle presented by First Star Logistics. And until next time, we appreciate you.